Welcome, dreamer. Close your eyes and breathe in slow. You've walked through forests with satyrs, sailed across ancient oceans with heroes, and stood beside gods as stars fell and empires rose. But tonight, you don't have to fight. You don't have to run. You don't have to carry the world. Tonight, you can simply listen. Because before the quests, before the monsters, before the prophecies and betrayals and battles that shook Olympus, there were stories. Old ones. Whispers told beneath olive trees and stitched into starlight. And just like the waves that lap against Poseidon's shore, they are still here. Waiting. Waiting for someone like you to sit beside the campfire and hear them again. You see, in the world of Percy Jackson, the world where gods still walk among mortals, every story has roots that stretch deep. Into the past, into myth, into legend. Every thunderclap in the sky, every gust of sea wind, every whisper from the shadows might just be the echo of a god's breath. And tonight we'll explore those echoes, gently, softly, one by one. We'll begin where the myths begin, not with the gods you know, but with the nothingness before them. With chaos, with the titans, with time and night and the stars being born. We'll meet the 12 Olympians, those who shaped the skies and seas and stories. We'll wander through their symbols, their secrets, and their dreams. We'll learn how Hades shaped the quiet below, how Poseidon ruled the shifting waves, and how Zeus still watches from atop the clouds, restless, regal, and roaring. But we won't stop there. We'll visit gods that hide in the corners of myth. Hecate, goddess of magic and crossroads. Nemesis, who balances the scales. Morpheus, who sends dreams like feathers on the wind. We'll tiptoe into the underworld, float gently through Elysium and the fields of asphodel, and peek past the gates of Tartarus, where the oldest stories are buried like bones. You'll hear about the weapons forged in divine fire, the creatures born from fear and wonder, and the song that still echo through Camp Half-Blood's woods. You may not remember it all. That's okay. You don't need to. Because tonight, the stories will remember you. Whether you're a long-time reader of Percy's world, or someone just stepping into myth for the first time, this journey is for you. It's made of quiet glances between heroes, of ancient pacts whispered over fire, of stars named after warriors long gone. And most of all, it's made to help you sleep. So let your shoulders relax, let your breath slow, and let your mind drift, not to nothing, but to a world that always was. To a time when gods walked among us, and mortals changed the course of fate with nothing more than a shield and a choice. The legends of Olympus, the dreams of demigods, the lore of the stars, all of it waiting just beyond the veil of sleep. So tuck yourself in, little dreamer. The wind is soft, the fire is warm, and the stories are ready. We begin now, with the gods who shaped the world, and the world that shaped Percy Jackson. Sleep easy. You are safe. You're seen. And you are exactly where the myths want you to be. Right here. With them. Long before Percy Jackson was born. Before Camp Half-Blood welcomed its first camper. Before the Empire State Building hid the gates of Olympus. There were the big three. Zeus, Poseidon, Hades. Not just gods, but brothers. And And not just brothers, but the first rulers of a broken world. They didn't inherit peace. They inherited war. And from the ashes of rebellion, they carved the cosmos, sky, sea, and shadow. Let's begin with how it all started. When the Titan Kronos was defeated, sliced apart by his son Zeus, cast into the depths of Tartarus, the three sons of Kronos stood over the world like sculptors staring at raw marble. It was theirs now, but how would they divide it? The stories say they drew lots. One straw for the sky, one for the sea, one for the underworld. And fate, always mischievous, placed them exactly where their hearts did and didn't want to be. Zeus, the youngest, drew the sky. It suited him, vast, grand, above all things. Poseidon claimed the sea, deep, unpredictable, restless. Hades was left with the underworld, and though he ruled it well, he never forgot that his domain had not been chosen, but given. Let's meet each of these gods as they exist in the world of Percy Jackson, not just as myths, but as characters, with flaws, with depth, with dreams they rarely speak aloud. If Olympus had a throne made of lightning, Zeus would sit on it with one hand gripping power, and the other gripping paranoia. He is the god of thunder, of law and order, of oaths and storms. In Percy's world, Zeus is both majestic and terrifying. He commands storms not just as weather, but as warnings. When he speaks, skies tremble. When he is angered, the world listens or burns. But Zeus is more than power. He is the symbol of rule, the father of gods, who must bear the weight of immortality's politics. He's strict, he's proud, and he doesn't forget betrayal. When Thalia Grace, a daughter of Zeus, stood against monsters on Half-Blood Hill, Zeus turned her into a tree to protect the camp. Some say it was mercy. Some say it was regret. But what's certain is this: Zeus has always feared the consequences of his children's power. And so he made a pact, a rule, a promise between him and his brothers. No more children from the big three. No more demigods who could shake the earth. It was a law of silence. And like most laws in Olympus, it was broken by Poseidon, by Hades, by fate. The sea is calm. Then it isn't. That's Poseidon. To many, he is the most ancient god, older than the tides, older than language. He doesn't need thunder to scare you. He just waits, watches, moves beneath the surface until it's too late to run. In Percy's life, Poseidon is more than a god. He is a father. A distant one, yes, but not cold. When Percy steps into water, he feels safer. When he's near the sea, he hears it whisper in a voice that sounds familiar. Poseidon doesn't raise Percy, but he protects him. In The Lightning Thief, it is Poseidon's trident that appears above Percy's head, marking him as the son of the sea. It changes everything. Suddenly, Percy isn't just a camper. He's a child of prophecy, a threat to Olympus. And it all began with a broken oath. Poseidon is not without guilt. He knows the pact of the big three was necessary. But when he met Sally Jackson, Percy's mom, something changed. He saw hope. And maybe, just maybe, he wanted to believe in a different future. Not one ruled by fear, but by love. Poseidon's palace beneath the sea is made of coral and pearl. It glows with a light that has never seen the surface. But it isn't just beautiful. It's haunted by wars, by sea monsters, by sons and daughters who tried and failed. yet, when Percy stands before it, he doesn't feel small. He feels like he belongs, because the sea always welcomes its own. He doesn't speak much, and when he does, you listen. Hades is not evil, but he is feared. In both Greek myth and the Percy Jackson universe, he is the god of the underworld, a domain not of fire and brimstone, but of silence and judgment. Hades does not seek power. He already has it. Every soul passes through his realm. Every king, every warrior, every thief. In Percy's world, Hades is distant, not cruel, but bitter. Because while Zeus and Poseidon walk in daylight and are celebrated in temples, Hades is forgotten, feared, avoided, left in the shadows. He has a palace made of obsidian and iron. He has a throne that no one dares approach, and he has regrets. Hades broke the pact, too. His son Nico D'Angelo didn't even know who he was until it was almost too late. But Hades did it differently. He hid his children. He buried the truth. Because he knew what Olympus would do if it found out. He doesn't trust the gods. He barely trusts himself. But when the world ends, Hades always shows up. He may not wear a crown of gold, but he is still a king. And in the final moments of every war, when even the bravest heroes falter, it is Hades who catches their souls. He does not celebrate. He does not demand thanks. He simply remembers. After World War II, a war influenced in part by demigods born from the big three, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades agreed to a sacred vow. No more children, no more power, no more risk. But fate has a sense of humor. And perhaps the gods simply couldn't help themselves. Percy Jackson, Thalia Grace, Nico and Bianca D'Angelo, 3 demigods born of prophecy, 3 children who should never have existed. Each shaped the war against Kronos. Each changed Olympus forever. And each proved one thing the gods always forget: that love and fate always outlive rules. What's most surprising, perhaps, is that the big 3 dream. They long for peace. They fear what they've built. Zeus rules from Olympus, but his grip is not what it once was. Poseidon watches the tides rise and wonders what comes next. Hades, in his lonely throne room, wonders if the world will ever stop fearing him. They are not just gods. They are echoes of humanity, amplified. And in the world of Percy Jackson, they are not above consequence. They argue, they protect, they fail, and sometimes they hope. But the big 3 were not the only ones who shaped Olympus. There were others, daughters and sons of power, some born in wisdom, some in war, some in jealousy, some in love. 12 Olympians, each with their own realm, each with their own stories. In the next section, we'll journey beyond the sky, sea, and shadow, and meet the full pantheon of the Olympian gods. We'll walk beside Athena in a library of strategy. We'll hear Apollo's laughter echo across the sunlit hills. We'll feel Artemis string her bow beneath the stars. So breathe easy. The gods are waiting, and the story continues. Once upon a time, on the sacred peak of Mount Olympus, 12 thrones shimmered in a grand circle, draped in mist and gold. Each one belonged to a being older than memory, greater than story, and yet somehow just as flawed as the humans who whispered their names. These were the Olympians, the core of the pantheon, the loudest, brightest, and most complicated family in all of Greek mythology, and in the Percy Jackson world, their personalities echoed through every demigod's life. Let us meet them one by one. At the center of Olympus sat Zeus, the lord of the sky. His throne crackled with stormlight. His gaze was thunder waiting to strike. He ruled not because he was the wisest, but because he was the loudest and most feared. To the mortals, he was a bringer of justice, a father of gods. To Percy Jackson, he was complicated. Percy saw the cracks in the clouds. He saw a god who wanted control but feared prophecy. A king who banished his own children out of fear they'd be too powerful. He once tried to destroy young Thalia with a lightning bolt and later turned her into a pine tree to protect her soul. But even gods evolve. By the time of the Second Titan War, Zeus stood with the Olympians to protect Olympus from Kronos himself. Still, the sky god was never just peace and light. He was judgment, and lightning never strikes gently. Beside him sat Hera, queen of Olympus, goddess of marriage, oaths, and the sacred bond between families. Yet in the demigod world, she was rarely a friend. To Percy, Hera was cold and calculating, a goddess who played games with lives. In the Heroes of Olympus, she appears as Juno, her Roman form manipulating Jason's memories, forcing the heroes together like chess pieces. She believed in order, not compassion. In structure, not story. But Hera was also the glue that kept Olympus from falling apart. A bitter glue, maybe, but one that held even in war. She wasn't loved by many demigods, but she was never useless. Even the coldest god had a purpose. And then there was Poseidon, god of the oceans, earthquakes, and horses. Theus, brother of Zeus, father of Percy. To the world, he was a tempest. To Percy, he was more than a god. He was a flicker of understanding in a chaotic life. When Percy first learned he was a demigod, it was Poseidon's trident that confirmed it, and a soft breeze over the waves that whispered, "You are not alone." Poseidon didn't always show love like a human father would, but he helped when it mattered. He saved Olympus by flooding the East River with sea monsters. He acknowledged Percy claimed him when other gods left their children in the shadows. And in his realm beneath the sea, Poseidon's palace shimmered with corals and calm, a place of silence, memory, and loyalty. Across the circle, surrounded by woven ivy and bushels of wheat, sat Demeter. She rarely shouted, rarely fought, but her power ran deeper than any battlefield. She was the goddess of the harvest of growth and patience. Her daughter, Persephone, ruled half the year in the underworld. And Demeter never forgave Hades for taking her. Demeter reminded the gods and the readers that not all power comes with thunder. Some comes from watching, from waiting, and from the gentle strength it takes to make the world bloom again after winter. In the Athena cabin at Camp Half-Blood, silence feels like strength. Books line the walls. Statues of owls and warriors stand side by side. Athena, born from Zeus's head, fully armored, was the goddess of wisdom, strategy, and reason. She had no mother. She allowed no chaos. Annabeth Chase, her daughter, inherited both her brilliance and her burdens. Athena disapproved of Percy and Annabeth's relationship at first, not because of hate, but because love, to her, was unpredictable. Still, Athena was a warrior. And when the gods were needed most, she stood at Olympus's gates, spear in hand, eyes like sharpened logic, light, laughter, and a little arrogance. That was Apollo. He drove the sun across the sky in a chariot of gold. He sang haikus that didn't always make sense. He flirted, joked, and played. But he also bore the weight of prophecy. The oracle at Delphi belonged to him. And the future often hurt more than the past. In the trials of Apollo, he was punished turned mortal, renamed Lester, stripped of power, pride, and protection. And in that weakness, he became something new. He became kind. He learned regret, and he became the god who could finally understand the mortals he once mocked. Silent, sharp, forever young. Artemis never aged. She wore silver and walked alone except for her hunters, a band of maidens who swore off love and chose the wild instead. Thalia joined them. So did many girls running from pain. Artemis protected them, fought beside them. When Orion threatened the world, she stood unshaken. When monsters rose, her silver arrows never missed. She was not soft like moonlight. She was the hunt. And yet, in the moon's reflection on a quiet lake, you could still see her kindness. A stillness in the storm. And then came the storm itself. Ares wore in a leather jacket, fire in a motorcycle helmet. Percy fought him once on a beach ocean versus fury, and won. Ares didn't forget. He hated Percy, feared him even, but that fear made him honest. Ares didn't pretend. He didn't trick. He wanted chaos, and he got it. Yet even he, in the final war, stood with Olympus. Sometimes, even rage must protect its home. In every creak of Camp Half-Blood's machines, in every bronze dragon gear, Hephaestus's hand could be felt. Crippled, but strong. Quiet, but essential. He made the weapons gods wielded. The traps Daedalus feared. The magic of automatons that helped heroes survive. He built, while others destroyed. Leo Valdez, his son, carried that same burden. And brilliance. Fire wasn't just rage, it was creation. And Hephaestus was its master. With a sigh of roses and a smile that could start wars, Aphrodite walked into Olympus like a poem. To most demigods, she seemed silly, all about looks and gossip. But she knew something the others didn't. Love moves mountains. Love ends wars. And love hurts. Her children, like Piper, learned that beauty is only one part of power. The rest, choice. Aphrodite didn't need a sword. She was the wound before the blade. Wings on his shoes. A sly grin. A traveler. A thief. A guide. Hermes brought messages between worlds. He also brought Luke Castellan. Luke, who loved too deeply, who hated betrayal more than anything because he'd felt it firsthand. Hermes never stopped mourning him. Even as a god, he understood pain. And through that pain, he reminded Percy that even immortals bleed. Even gods can break. At Camp Half-Blood, they called him Mr. D. He drank Diet Coke. He hated brats. But beneath his snark, Dionysus was old. Older than most. A god who'd been torn apart and reborn. Madness followed him. So did loyalty. When camp was attacked, he fought. When Percy needed help, he gave it, even if it meant breaking a rule or two. Dionysus was not a hero. But sometimes he saved them anyway. 12 gods. 12 stories. Each throne on Olympus carried history and flaws, glory and grief. But together, they shaped the world Percy Jackson lived in, and the destiny he carried. And yet, behind those thrones, others waited. Older gods. Forgotten gods. Primordial forces that even Olympus feared, but those stories, they whisper in the wind. Before there were gods, before there were titans, before even time could count itself forward, there was chaos. Not the kind of chaos that brings storms or wars, but a kind that simply was. An endless space, a nothingness so vast it was everything. A deep, dark canvas, waiting for the first brushstroke of existence. Chaos floated in silence. It wasn't angry. It wasn't kind. It simply existed. And from that stillness, the first beings were born. The primordials. They were not like the gods we know. They were ancient forces, the bones of the world. They didn't walk or talk in the way mortals understand. They were the laws of nature, the breath of the cosmos, the roots beneath Mount Olympus itself. First came Gaia, the earth. She unfurled like a soft green blanket. Rolling hills, sleeping forests, mountains that reached into the stars. Gaia was warm, wide, silent, but always listening. Then came Uranos, the sky. He blanketed Gaia with stars, wrapping her in twilight and dreams. Together, earth and sky formed the world's first embrace. But they weren't alone. Tartarus emerged the deep pit, the abyss beneath all things. He wasn't evil, just heavy, dense. A place where ancient power slept and waited. Nyx followed, night herself. She drifted across the edges of the universe, painting the sky in velvet. Stars bloomed in her wake like silver petals. And then, her brother Erebus, the personification of shadow, joined her. Not darkness, like fear, but the quiet between candlelight and sleep. Together, Nyx and Erebus danced in silence. And from their union came more children. Dreams, death, sleep, even revenge. Each one more abstract than the last. Each one a part of the great balance of being. Far above them all, ether, the bright upper air, shimmered into being. He carried light into the cosmos, a soft, white glow, not like the sun, but like the first breath after waking. Then came Hemera Day. She followed Nyx, brushing the shadows away like morning breeze pulling curtains. It was never war, only rhythm. Night followed day, day followed night. The universe began to hum. Back on Earth, Gaia dreamed, and her dreams took shape. She gave birth to hills and rivers, caves and cliffs. And eventually, she gave birth to her first children with Uranos, the Titans. But the story of the Titans is still a ways away, because the primordials weren't done shaping the cosmos. Pontus, the sea, emerged next, not with a crash, but with a hush. He lapped gently against Gaia's shores, blue and green and deep and wide. And in time, he too became a father of creatures beyond counting. Aurea, the mountains, came from Gaia's breath. They stood tall and silent, watching the stars. And Uranus Oranos cloaked them all with his silver sky. He was not a kind being. He looked down at the Titans, his children, and felt fear, for they were powerful. So he forced them back into Gaia's belly, one by one, trapping them in the Earth's deepest caverns. Gaia groaned, not with pain, but sorrow. Imagine trying to walk with stars in your chest. Imagine holding fire and thunder and not being able to let go. She wept in silence beneath Uranos' sky, until one day she did something about it. But that tale belongs to the Titans. For now, let's return to the primordials. Many of them are forgotten by history. Some were never even named. Others existed as moments like Chronos, time itself, winding forward like a river of sand. not to be confused with Kronos, the Titan. Kronos was the flow of time, the ticking of destiny. The whisper that says, soon. In the Percy Jackson universe, these primordial forces aren't just myth. They are real, and old, and patient. They don't care about quests or heroes. They watch from afar, or sleep beneath the crust of the world. In the house of Hades, Percy and Annabeth fall through Tartarus itself. They feel his awareness, his hate, his hunger, because Tartarus is not just a place. He is a being, and he remembers. Even Percy, son of Poseidon, could barely survive walking his skin. Other primordials stir as the series unfolds. Nyx, goddess of night, appears in the house of Hades too. Her presence is different from the Olympians. She doesn't argue. She doesn't yell. She simply is. And her children, the spirits of doom, misery, pain, follow her like shadows. In the darkness of Tartarus, she tells Percy and Annabeth a truth. You don't belong here. Not with anger, just with certainty. Because mortals are not supposed to brush against these ancient beings. In the blood of Olympus, another primordial stirs Gaia. No longer just the earth. Now, an awakened force. She wants to rise, to swallow Olympus, to end the age of gods and begin the age of earth. But even as Gaia rises, the stories whisper of older threats. Of chaos, sleeping deeper still. Of entities that even Gaia would fear. It reminds us that power has layers. The Olympians once overthrew the Titans. The Titans once dethroned Ouranos. And the primordials? They simply watch. Dead. Timeless, endless, deep. In Rick Riordan's world, they are not evil. They're not good. They are truth. They are foundation. And in dreams, they're closer than you think. As the stars shimmer over Camp Half-Blood, and you lay still under your covers, imagine the endless night where Nyx drifts silently across the sky. Imagine Gaia breathing beneath the ground. Imagine Kronos ticking softly beside your heartbeat. And Tartarus, dreaming in the dark. You are part of this world now. Part of the rhythm, the balance, the legacy. And as the primordials fade into mist, a new chapter begins. Because now, the Titans rise. The air was still and silent before the first breath of anything before stars, before sea, before time even dared to tick forward. This was the domain of chaos, the origin of all things in the Percy Jackson universe. In the quiet before existence, chaos was not male or female, not dark or light. It was a swirling, unknowable force, vast and formless, the very concept of nothingness giving birth to everything. From this limitless void emerged the first beings, ancient forces so powerful and distant, they were more idea than shape, more rhythm than form. These weren't just gods. These were truths woven into the fabric of the universe. First came Gaia, Earth herself, vast and maternal. She rose not as a person, but as land, stone, mountain, and forest, all that gives foundation to life. Her voice was the earthquake, her heartbeat the pulse of the world. She would become one of the most enduring and dangerous forces in Percy Jackson's world, both a mother and a destroyer. Then came Uranus, the sky. Cold, star-pierced, and high above, he blanketed Gaia like a crown of stars and mist. Together, earth and sky would become the first divine couple, the architects of the next generation. But their union would be steeped in control, rebellion, and betrayal. Also, from chaos came Tartarus, the deepest abyss beneath even the underworld. It was not just a place, but a presence, a dark, sentient void where the worst monsters and the most ancient evil would be cast, and sometimes crawl back out. Percy and Annabeth would fall into Tartarus in their own time, brushing against its horror. Then rose Erebus, the spirit of darkness that cloaks the spaces between, and Nyx, the night, ancient and powerful, with a shadow so thick even Zeus feared her. Nyx wasn't simply nightfall, she was the embodiment of fear, silence, and unknowable terror. Her children were dreadful, and many, including Hypnos, the god of sleep, and Nemesis, goddess of retribution. All of these entities were not just part of the lore. They were essential to the balance of everything that came after. As Gaia and Uranus brought forth their children, the stage began to shift. From them came the Titans, tall golden beings who would one day rule before the Olympians rose. But not all children were born equal in form or favor. Gaia gave birth to the Cyclopes, one-eyed giants of thunder and forge, and to the Hecatoncheires, beings with 50 heads and 100 arms. Uranus, disgusted by their appearance and fearful of their power, hurled them deep into the earth, imprisoning them within Gaia's very body. This act of cruelty and repression would not go unpunished. In her sorrow and fury, Gaia plotted against Uranus. She crafted a great scythe from the uncut stone of the earth and turned to her Titan children, seeking one brave enough to wield it. Only Cronus, the youngest and most ambitious, stepped forward. One night, as Uranus descended from the sky to embrace the earth, Cronus struck. The scythe cut through the cosmos a moment so violent it echoed forever. Uranus fell back, severed and bleeding stardust. From his blood, the first monsters were born. From his fall, the balance shifted. Cronus took power. The reign of the Titans had begun. But this new era would not be one of peace. For as Cronus ruled, a prophecy whispered from the edge of the void that he too would be overthrown by one of his own children. And so, as his wife Rhea bore him child after child, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, he swallowed them whole. One by one, he locked the future in his belly. Only Zeus, the lastborn, would escape this fate. Rhea, desperate to save her sixth child, wrapped a stone in cloth and gave it to Cronus in place of her son. Meanwhile, baby Zeus was hidden in a cave on Mount Ida, where he was nourished by divine goats and protected by warriors who clashed their swords to hide his cries from the heavens. Here, the thread of prophecy tightened. As Zeus grew in secret, the world around Cronus began to shift. Gaia stirred again. Nyx's children whispered in dreams, and chaos itself seemed to wait breath held, eyes closed for the storm that would come. Eventually, Zeus would return. And the Titanomachy, the war between the Titans and the Olympians, would tear across the skies and seas. But we aren't there yet. This chapter, this moment in the soft history of Percy Jackson's world belongs to the primordial ones, not Olympians on thrones, not heroes with swords, but elemental truths that even gods bow before. Take Ananke, the force of necessity and fate, a being barely mentioned, but felt in every choice, every prophecy. Or Kronos, not to be confused with Cronus, the embodiment of time itself. Slow and vast, drifting at the edge of chaos like a ghost clock ticking through eternity. Or even Hemera, goddess of day, daughter of Nyx and Erebus. As night retreated, she would rise each morning, silent and golden. In the Percy Jackson lore, these beings are the threads that weave the tapestry. They don't fight with lightning or tridents. They fight with meaning, with silence, with inevitability. And some of them still linger. In Tartarus, ancient remnants still whisper. In the shadows between dreams, Nyx still watches. In the deepest halls of the underworld, Erebus sighs. And sometimes, when the gods forget how small they truly are, chaos stirs. Because even the brightest god must remember the darkness that came first. Even Percy Jackson, brave, reckless, loyal, Percy found himself brushing against these truths. In the caverns of Tartarus, in the weight of prophecy, in the silence between each battle where the echoes of something older than time seemed to hum. These forces are not dead. They are not gone. They are resting, waiting. And as you drift further into sleep, imagine this. The vast void of chaos, not empty, but peaceful. A place beyond pain, beyond fear. The place from which everything once bloomed. A place you now understand because you've walked through the lore, through the breath of the world before the world. You've met Gaia before she raged. You've seen Nyx before her stars. You've felt Tartarus before it opened. And you've stood in the moment when the sky first kissed the earth and the earth whispered back. The tale of Percy Jackson does not begin with a boy and a sword. It begins with silence, then breath, then chaos. And from chaos, everything. Long before Olympus cast its golden shadow across the skies, long before Poseidon ruled the seas and Athena wielded wisdom like a sword, there were the Titans. The world had just begun to settle. From the chaos and primordial forces came Gaia, the earth, and Uranos, the sky. Their union was one of balance, earth and sky, below and above. But balance is delicate, and in Percy Jackson's world, it often teeters. Gaia, the nurturing mother, gave birth to 12 powerful beings. The first generation of Titans. Each one vast, ancient, and brimming with raw energy. Kronos, the youngest, gleamed with ambition. Oceanus, the ever-flowing river encircling the world. Hyperion, lord of light. Theia, shining with brilliance. Mnemosyne, who cradled memory in her voice. Together, they ruled the early cosmos, but not without friction. Uranos, fearing his own children's strength, grew harsh. He locked the 100-handed ones in the Cyclopes, deep within Gaia's womb, Tartarus. The pain of this act, it echoed through the bones of the earth. And Gaia, heartbroken and enraged, sought justice. She turned to her children. "Who among you," she whispered, "will bring change?" Only one. Titan stepped forward, Kronos. Armed with a sickle of flint and his mother's promise, he waited until the stars were silent. And when Uranos descended to embrace Gaia, Kronos struck. From this act, blood spilled into the sea. And from it, legends were born. The Furies, the Giants. And far across the foamy waves, a being unlike any before, Aphrodite, goddess of love, rising from the sea's froth. Kronos took power, casting aside his father's rule. He freed his siblings from their pain. And for a time, the world was peaceful. But like all rulers, Kronos feared the fate of those before him. A prophecy haunted him, that one day, your own child shall overthrow you. To avoid this, Kronos did the unthinkable. He swallowed his children, one by one, as Rhea bore them, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon. Each one, a divine flame, snuffed before it could burn. But Rhea could not let her sixth child share their fate. When Zeus was born, she wrapped a stone in swaddling cloth and gave it to Kronos. He devoured it, and never knowing. Zeus was raised in secret, nurtured on goat's milk and honey, taught by nymphs and protected by hidden guardians. And when he came of age, he did not forget his siblings. With cunning and courage, Zeus returned. He gave Kronos a potion that forced him to regurgitate the swallow gods, now fully grown, powerful, and ready. The gods rose. They joined Zeus in rebellion. Thus began the Titanomachy, the great war of gods and titans, Mount Olympus versus Mount Othrys. Lightning against earth, wisdom against brute force, immortals against their creators. For 10 years, the battle raged. Poseidon's trident split the oceans. Hades crafted helmets of fear. Hera led divine strategy. And Zeus with his thunderbolt shattered mountains. But it was not only the gods who fought. The Cyclopes and the 100-handed ones freed from Tartarus by Zeus turned the tide. The Cyclopes forged weapons of unimaginable power. Zeus's master bolt, Poseidon's trident, Hades' helm of darkness. And the 100-handed ones, with their flurry of arms, hurled mountains like pebbles. At last, Kronos fell. Zeus did not kill him. Instead, the king of the Titans was cut into pieces and cast into Tartarus, to drift in agony, never quite fading, never quite free. His loyal followers met a similar fate. Atlas was punished to bear the sky on his shoulders for eternity. And thus the age of the Olympians began. In the world of Percy Jackson, these tales are not just ancient whispers. They shape every god, every monster, every prophecy. Luke, the demigod turned traitor, would eventually resurrect Kronos, not as a myth, but as a presence. A golden sarcophagus holding the Lord of Time's soul. Piece by piece, Kronos returned, through manipulation, betrayal, and war. The Titans never truly faded. They waited. In the darkest parts of Tartarus. In the dreams of those seeking vengeance. In the doubts of demigods who wondered if the gods deserved their thrones. But even before that rise, even before Percy or Annabeth or Grover knew their fates, the Titans had already shaped the world they'd be born into. And their stories, they weren't just warnings. They were lessons. Lessons about power, about fear, about the delicate line between protection and control. Because Kronos was not born evil, he rose to protect his siblings. He became a tyrant to avoid his father's fate. And in doing so, he sealed his own. The Titans also shaped the world's natural forces. Oceanus, god of the primal sea, existed before Poseidon. Hyperion's light laid the foundation for Helios and Apollo. Selene rode the moon long before Artemis claimed her chariot. Even Themis, the titaness of justice, whispered laws into Olympus's ear. They weren't forgotten, just replaced. But in the cracks of prophecy, in the roots of every monster's rage, the Titans endure. Let us drift, now, to the edge of Tartarus. To the space where shadows breathe. To where Prometheus, a titan of foresight and fire, still walks in chains. He once gave humanity flame, a gift the gods tried to deny. And for this, he was punished. Bound to a rock, his liver devoured by an eagle every day, only to regrow and suffer again. Even Percy would meet him. Not in stories, but face to face. Prometheus did not hate mortals. He believed in them, which, in the world of gods, was a dangerous thing. His His defiance echoed in every rebellion to come. So when the Titans fell, it wasn't the end. It was the beginning of questions. Questions Percy Jackson would have to answer. Can you inherit power without becoming your predecessor? Can you destroy the past without destroying what you've learned from it? Kronos' return was not just a war. It was a mirror, held up to every demigod. Who will you become, it asked. Percy stood at that crossroads and chose to be more. He denied the throne. He trusted his friends. He ended a cycle older than Olympus itself. Because that's the secret of the Titans. They were never just villains. They were choices. Made too soon, held too long, and feared too deeply. Now, dear dreamer, let us leave the war-scarred peaks behind. Let us drift once again. Because from the ashes of Titanfall came the next generation. Not gods, not titans, but heroes. Children born of both worlds. Destined to walk the thin line between shadow and storm. As you breathe slowly now, we rise from the depths of Tartarus to the golden gates of Mount Olympus itself. At Zeus, where gods await. And the age of prophecy begins again. When the Titans fell, Olympus rose. High above the mortal world, veiled in mist and mystery, the new order began to take shape. The sky once ruled by Uranus, then Cronus, now belonged to Zeus, king of the gods, wielder of thunder, and bearer of justice. Olympus wasn't just a place, it was a declaration, a symbol that a new age had begun, and that the gods of old had not disappeared, they had evolved. The realm of Olympus itself, as told in the stories and lived by the characters in Percy Jackson's world, was no mountaintop in Greece alone. In Rick Riordan's mythos, Olympus shifts with the heart of Western civilization. And so, during the events of Percy's life, Olympus is nestled above the Empire State Building floor, 600, to be exact, invisible to mortals, but very real to those with divine blood. Inside Olympus, the architecture gleams with impossible grandeur. Polished marble columns, golden thrones carved with ancient runes, ethereal light that seems to sing in harmony. It is a realm both eternal and fluid, shaped by power and belief. Here, the Olympians ruled. Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Hera, Demeter, Hestia, Athena, Ares, Apollo, Artemis, Hephaestus, Aphrodite, Hermes, Dionysus. Each god brought their domains, their moods, and their messy divine politics. But Olympus, for all its glory, was never perfect. For every radiant banquet held in its grand halls, there was a whisper of betrayal. For every celebration of victory, a shadow of vengeance. Olympus was powerful, but it was also fragile, and that tension bled into the lives of every demigod that would ever be born. Zeus ruled with thunder in his voice and lightning in his heart. His word was law, and yet his judgment often faltered. He feared prophecy. He feared rebellion. And in that fear, he made mistakes, banishing his daughter Thalia into a tree, denying acknowledgement of many of his children, and trying to crush threats rather than understand them. Poseidon, the sea god, brother to Zeus, was both calmer and more volatile. Like the ocean itself, he could be nurturing or wrathful, deep with love or crashing with fury. In Percy's eyes, Poseidon became something rare among gods, a father who tried. But even Poseidon bore scars from the old wars, grudges with Zeus, and guilt over past mistakes. Hades, ruler of the underworld, was the outcast. His realm was not seen as noble like the sky or life-giving like the sea. It was feared. He held power equal to his brothers, but was denied a throne on Olympus. He carried bitterness. He made deals with mortals. He kept to the shadows until his children emerged, first Nico, then Bianca, and later Hazel. Hades' story, like many of the gods, is not one of evil, but of exclusion. And so the gods fought with words, with prophecy, with silence. Olympus endured, but not without cracks. One of those cracks was Hera. Goddess of marriage and queen of Olympus, Hera's love was controlling, obsessive, suffocating. Her hatred of demigod children stemmed from Zeus's betrayals, but her wrath often fell upon innocents. She manipulated, she punished, and yet she believed herself a protector of Olympus, even when her actions placed the world at risk. And then there was Athena, goddess of wisdom and strategy, cold, brilliant, fair. She judged demigods like Annabeth with impossible standards, and her mind saw outcomes before they began. She was both the chess master and the silent sentinel. But even she feared the rise of something beyond logic, chaos, prophecy, and emotion. Ares brought war, bloodlust, and pride. He scorned Percy from the start. He provoked conflict even among gods. Yet even Ares played a role to ensure Olympus didn't grow too soft. Aphrodite, goddess of love, seemed light-hearted but harbored a depth many missed. Love, she knew, was the root of most battles. Her influence ran through the hearts of heroes and villains alike. Hermes, god of messengers, wore many faces, the sly smile, the absent father, the bearer of burdens. When Luke, his son, betrayed Olympus, it shattered something in him, something that never fully healed. Hephaestus, born of rejection, became the god of fire and forge. Cast from Olympus as a baby, he built wonders and traps, yet he bore no malice, only loneliness. Dionysus, god of wine and madness, served reluctantly at Camp Half-Blood. His punishment given by Zeus made him bitter, but beneath his sarcasm was a god who, in his own way, protected the children under his care, even if he never admitted it. And then, Apollo, god of the sun, prophecy, healing, and music, vain, charismatic, reckless. But when punished by Zeus and turned mortal, he became lesser, and in doing so, saw the world not as a god, but as a human. That journey would redefine Olympus again, but that's a tale for later. As the gods ruled, mortals lived and died. Demigods were born, monsters reformed, and in the realm between god and mortal, prophecies stirred. At the heart of Olympus stood the throne room, 13 thrones for 13 gods, though rarely all occupied. When Percy first saw it, he felt the weight of power, of expectation. He was a boy from New York, now speaking to the gods who shaped his fate. He made them listen. He made them promise. After the Titan War, he demanded they claim all their children, not just the famous ones. That was the first step toward healing the cracks in Olympus. But gods are slow to change. The mist, that magical veil separating mortal eyes from divine truth, grew thicker with every lie the gods told themselves. Some gods cared, some didn't. Some remembered the ancient days when they were worshipped openly and longed to return. Olympus was power, yes, but it was also memory. It remembered Cronus. It remembered the fall. And somewhere in those golden halls, it remembered the flame Prometheus stole, the whisper of rebellion that could always come again. And come, it did not in the form of titans this time, but giants. Gaia, the earth herself, began to stir, angry that her children, the titans, had fallen. Her rise would awaken a force older than Olympus, older than prophecy, nature itself reclaiming power. But that's a tale for the next chapter. For now, As Olympus still shimmers above the Empire State, the fireflies of memory drift through its corridors. The gods may be flawed, but they are real. They live in stories, in storms, in dreams. And tonight, perhaps, they live in you too. Close your eyes. Hear the echo of thunder from Zeus's throne. Feel the sea breeze from Poseidon's halls. Taste the ashes of Hephaestus's forge. Hear Apollo's lyre strumming gently in the distance. Olympus stands, and the world waits. Long before the rise of Olympus, before even the Titans forged their rule, there was Gaia, the earth itself, the mother of all life. She wasn't born from chaos like the others. She was the soil beneath your feet, the breath of forests, the womb of mountains. She had always been. She watched her children, the Titans, rise and fall. She felt every battle like a wound in her chest. And though Kronos fell, Gaia did not grieve. Because she had been waiting, watching. And deep within her core, something ancient had begun to stir. A wrath, a vengeance, a promise. The gods of Olympus may have defeated the Titans, but in doing so, they had awoken something far older and far more dangerous. Beneath the mountains and rivers of the world, Gaia began to gather strength. She whispered to roots. She sang through lava. She breathed dreams into stones. And slowly, she began to wake, not like a person opening their eyes. No. This was the awakening of the land itself, the bones of the earth trembling, the soil remembering war. And from her fury came her new army, not titans, not monsters, but giants. Born from the spilled blood of Ouranos, Gaia's first consort, they had slept for ages buried deep in the crust of the world. But now, one by one, they rose, towering, terrible, and each designed for one purpose: to destroy the gods. You see, Gaia did not just want revenge. She wanted balance restored by removing Olympus altogether. Each giant was born to counter a specific god, a mirror, a rival, a destroyer. There was Alcyoneus, who could not be killed on land that wasn't his own. Porphyrion, a king among giants, meant to challenge Zeus himself, and dozens more, each crafted to strike down Olympus's pride, power, and legacy. But there was one problem. To destroy an Olympian god, a demigod and a god would have to fight together. It was the one rule even Gaia couldn't break. So while her giants stirred beneath volcanoes and ancient hills, she needed time to weaken the gods, distract the heroes, and prepare for war. And she would get it. Because while the seven were on their quests, while Percy and Annabeth fell into Tartarus, while the Romans and Greeks stood divided, Gaia grew stronger. She fed on fear, on death, on doubt. Every fight, every loss, every drop of demigod blood spilled into the earth made her more alive, more awake. And in the shadows of this rising storm, she sent her agents to act. There was Medea, the deadly sorceress reborn. There was the giant polybotes, chasing Poseidon's legacy. And of course, there was Orion. Each played their part, weakening the defenses of Olympus, scattering the unity of its children. Even as the Argo II flew across the sky, Gaia's roots stretched farther. She whispered into the dreams of demigods, turning them against each other. She made peace look like a threat. She made love feel like betrayal. She knew that wars weren't always won with swords. Sometimes, you just needed to plant seeds of doubt and wait for them to grow. Meanwhile, the gods were struggling. Split between their Greek and Roman forms, their identities wavered. One day Mars, the next Ares. One moment Athena, the next Minerva. And in that confusion, their power faded. They forgot who they were. They couldn't help their children. Gaia smiled, because this was her plan all along. Where Kronos tried to rule with time, Gaia ruled with silence, with sleep, with slow creeping inevitability. And the scariest part? No one saw it coming. Not until it was nearly too late. In the depths of Tartarus, where even gods feared to tread, Percy and Annabeth faced monsters reborn from death. Each step they took bled into Gaia's strength. Each heartbeat echoed into her awakening. And above ground, giants attacked temples. Monsters rallied to ancient callings. Mortals whispered of strange happenings, earthquakes, sinkholes, animals fleeing forests like the earth itself had turned cruel. The world was breaking, piece by piece. And Gaia, she only needed one more thing to rise fully. A final sacrifice. The blood of two demigods, poured into the stones of the earth at just the right place. The ancient land of Greece. Specifically, the Parthenon. So she waited. She baited. She let her giants chase the seven from continent to continent. Let Leo charm dragons. Let Hazel face ghosts. Let Frank master old fire. But it was all leading to one moment. Athens, where blood would fall. And she would rise. The gods were splintered. The camps barely united. The Argo too had seen too many battles. And in the soil beneath the Acropolis, Gaia smiled. She smiled because it had begun. The giants had gathered. Each of them a nightmare born from blood and stone. Porphyrion towered over the ruins of Athens, a twisted parody of Zeus' golden armor cracked with malice, eyes glowing like molten pits. Beside him stood Enceladus, foe of Athena, Hippolytos, twisted mockery of Artemis, Mimas, destroyer of Hephaestus. They had returned not from war, but for ritual, because this wasn't just a battle. It was a birth. Gaia's true awakening, arising from slumber to reclaim a world that had forgotten her. And to wake, she needed the final blood offering. Two demigods. Two drops. At the wrong place. At the wrong time. And fate cruel, silent, ever watchful, had delivered exactly that. Percy. Annabeth. Their journey from Tartarus had brought them to the surface weary, scarred, but alive. And now they stood in the cradle of prophecy. The others followed. Jason with the wind in his hands. Hazel with death at her heels. Leo, Nico, Piper, Frank all drawn to this single place. Seven against the earth. But even with prophecy at their back, this was not a fair fight. Because Gaia was the world. She could not be cut. She could not be drowned. She was under every blade, behind every stone, inside every breath. She was breath. And worst of all, she was awake now. The sky above Athens darkened. Thunder didn't roll. It cracked like the world was splitting. Winds howled like wounded gods. The Acropolis itself trembled. And from the marble stones a face began to rise. A woman's face, made of mountain and moss, of rage and root. Gaia's form, not symbolic, real. The gods had never imagined she could take shape, but she had. Fueled by the near sacrifice of two demigods, fueled by centuries of silence. And now she opened her eyes. They weren't eyes. They were caverns. And they looked directly at the seven. You, she whispered, voice deeper than oceans, have stolen this world from its mother. ground exploded. The giants attacked first. Porphyrion clashed with Jason, lightning against brute strength. Mimas tried to bury the Hephaestus, Cabin's legacy beneath ash and ruin, only to be met by Leo's fire brighter than ever, blue and hungry. Frank became the beast within, charging through lines of chaos. Hazel shattered illusions and bent reality like shadows. But it wasn't enough. They were losing, because even united, they were still just demigods. And Jaya, she was the source. The reason the gods had thrones. The reason there was even ground to stand on. She was everything. And she wanted everything back. But legends are not born in ease. They rise from desperation. And in that final hour, when blood had nearly touched stone, Leo made a choice. He remembered a promise. To Calypso, to the girl left behind on Ogygia, to love, to return, to build something new. So he flew. With Festus reborn beneath him and a plan older than even Hephaestus's, forges ringing in his ears. He flew toward Jaya, straight into the storm of her awakening, carrying fire not just from his hands, but from a weapon, the only one that could end her. A machine, crafted in secret, powered by his own heart, fueled by death. A bomb. Jaya laughed. "Little boy," she whispered, "you cannot burn the world." Leo smiled through his tears. "I'm not trying to burn it," he said. "I'm trying to save it." And he vanished in flame. The explosion was not loud. It was final. It wasn't sound. It was silence swallowing rage. A light that didn't just blind, it erased. And when it was over, Jaya was no more. The earth cracked where she had risen. The giants turned to ash. The war ended with sacrifice, with fire, with love. For a long moment, no one spoke. Jason fell to one knee. Piper held his hand. Frank stood between shadow and sun. Hazel wept. Annabeth clutched Percy like he might vanish too. And Nico, he turned his face to the wind, because Leo was gone. But he had kept the promise, not just to Calypso, but to all of them. He had built a future. Except Leo wasn't gone, not entirely. In the far reaches of the sky, beyond mortal sight, a dragon sword, Festus, alive, carrying a boy who coughed smoke and grinned through soot, and in his arms, a girl with star-bright eyes and fury braided into her hair. Calypso, rescued, not by gods, not by fate, but by Leo. He had tricked death. He had tricked even prophecy. And while the world below healed, the stars above welcomed a new kind of myth. A mechanic, a hero, a lover. Back on Earth, peace returned slowly. Camps were rebuilt, wounds stitched. Monsters fled back to corners of the world where myth still lingers. But something had changed. Because Jaya's rise was not just a war. It was a warning. That even the oldest powers could stir. That silence does not mean surrender. That sleep does not mean peace. And for every demigod who wandered the woods of Camp Half-Blood, for every Roman soldier training at Camp Jupiter, for every child who looked to the stars and whispered the names of gods, Jaya was a reminder of the cost of forgetting, of what lies beneath, of what it means to awaken. Yet even so, hope bloomed. In strawberries, in golden drachmas tossed in lakes, in laughter shared in the Apollo cabin, in letters sent between camps, in the sound of Pegasi wings, and in the forge, where new heroes began to dream, not of war, but of building, because after the end of the earth's fury came the beginning of its healing. And the story, it moved on to new gods, new trials, new dreams. But deep in the soil, beneath Camp Half-Blood's gentle grass, a crack remains, small, silent, waiting. Because Jaya may have been defeated, but she was never truly gone. And the earth never forgets. The air in Camp Half-Blood is thick with pine and prophecy. And at the very heart of it all, beneath the attic of the big house, rests a being ancient and wrapped in silence, the Oracle of Delphi. To the outside world, she's little more than a shriveled mummy, bound in centuries-old cloth and curled into a rocking chair. But for the demigods of Percy Jackson's world, she's the thread between fate and free will, a vessel through which gods whisper their riddles and heroes learn what doom awaits them. The Oracle is not a god, not a titan. She's something older in a way, older than memory, carried forward through time by one girl after another, possessed by the spirit of Delphi. This spirit once lived in the days of ancient Greece, housed in the temple at Delphi, where mortals would come trembling with questions. Kings, soldiers, wanderers, and desperate mothers. They all sought answers, but the Oracle never gave them straight. She gave them riddles, loops, half-truths and warnings disguised as poetry. And when the Greek gods faded from the modern world, they took their oracle with them, transported her, like Mount Olympus itself, to the new world, to Camp Half-Blood. But what is a prophecy truly? It is not a roadmap. It is not a spoiler. It's a pressure point. A prophecy turns heroes into chess pieces, even when they think they're playing the game themselves. Just ask Luke Castellan. The first great prophecy in the series, the one that began it all, spoke of a child of the big three, Zeus, Poseidon, or Hades, who would rise on their 16th birthday to either save or destroy Olympus. That prophecy haunted the gods, so they made a pact. No more children from the big three. But Hades, Zeus, and Poseidon all broke that oath. And fate began to stir. When Percy arrived at Camp Half-Blood, Chiron and the others feared he might be the child of the prophecy. But he was too young. So was Thalia Grace, daughter of Zeus, until she was turned into a pine tree. And then, later, there was Nico D'Angelo, a wild card from Hades' bloodline. Each of them could have fulfilled the prophecy, but in the end, it was Percy who stood at the center of it. Not because he wanted to, but because fate had a way of circling him again and again. Prophecies in this world are not passive. They pull at reality. They demand fulfillment. And every demigod who receives one must carry it like a weight. Annabeth received her first real prophecy during the Titan's curse. She would be part of a dangerous quest, but not all would survive. The words haunted her, wrapped around her like barbed vines. And then there's Rachel Elizabeth Dare. She's not a demigod. She has no godly parent, but she sees through the mist, clearer than any mortal should. She's a mortal vessel for the next oracle. When the spirit of Delphi passes from the decaying body upstairs, it needs a new host, a mortal who can handle visions, riddles, and divine chaos. And Rachel, brave, calm, and deeply mysterious, accepts. She speaks the new great prophecy, the one that launches the Heroes of Olympus arc, a prophecy about 7 demigods, storm and fire, and the earth awakening. Not just any earth, but Jaya, the primordial mother of all things. A being who hates the gods, the Titans, and humanity alike. And Rachel's words send the heroes down a spiral of quests, sacrifice, and impossible choices. It's important to understand, prophecies don't just describe the future, they shape it. Demigods often wonder, was the danger always coming? Or did the prophecy make it come true? This is the curse of knowing. When you hear a prophecy, you can't unhear it. You start making decisions based on what might happen. You see shadows where none exist. You fear allies. You overthink every step. It's the reason so many demigods have gone mad. And it's why many fear the oracle more than any monster. Even Nico, who's seen the worst of the underworld, pauses when he hears Rachel's voice shift into that ancient tone. It's not her voice anymore. It's Delphi. It's fate itself. But what makes a prophecy truly tragic is that even when you try to avoid it, you often walk right into it. Luke's fall was sealed not by Kronos, not by the gods, but by his own reading of the prophecy. He thought he was the cursed child, the one meant to destroy Olympus. And in trying to escape that destiny, he fulfilled it. Until the very end, when he chose sacrifice over destruction. He broke the chain, but only by dying. So when Percy hears prophecies, he doesn't see them as gifts. He sees them as warnings, as burdens. And when Apollo, turned mortal in the Trials of Apollo series, receives prophecies himself, he realizes just how terrible they truly are. He once gave them as a god, but now, as a boy named Lester, he lives them. He stumbles, fails, bleeds, and learns to fear the very riddles he once sent down to mortals from Olympus. There's a deep irony in that. A god, cursed to understand humanity, through the very doom he used to deliver. And so, every prophecy in Percy Jackson's world becomes more than a plot device. It becomes a mirror. It shows the heroes not who they are, but who they might become. For better or for worse. And as we drift into the next stories, the ones not yet told or just beginning, one thing remains clear. There will always be another prophecy, another hero, another whisper in the attic. Beneath the watchful arms of the pine trees, nestled on the gentle slope of Half-Blood Hill, there lies a sanctuary untouched by time. You'll camp Half-Blood. A place whispered into dreams, drawn in the margins of ancient scrolls, and remembered by every demigod who has ever walked its wild paths. It is not just a training ground. It is home. A haven stitched together by courage, pain, and myth. And no matter how many battles rage in the world of gods, monsters, and men, the camp stands, humming softly with life. Each morning begins with the sound of the conch horn echoing across the valley. It's not just a wake-up call, it's a summons, a reminder that each day is a gift, a new chance to train, to laugh, to learn, and to survive. The cabins, 12 of them, lined in a U-shape around the central green glow in the early sun. Each one is different, uniquely built to honor the god or goddess whose children sleep inside. Zeus's cabin stands tall and regal, with thunderbolt carvings and marble columns that seem to scrape the sky. Poseidon's is weathered, sea-worn, and smells faintly of salt. Hermes's is chaotic, overflowing with bunk beds, forgotten shoes, prank kits, and half-eaten Pop-Tarts. Even in stillness, each cabin breathes the legacy of its god. In the mornings, demigods stretch in the training arena. Swords clink softly in drills. Shields shine in the rising sun. Chiron, the centaur, and camp's immortal activities director, watches with quiet pride. He's seen generations pass through these fields, sons of heroes, daughters of fate. He teaches not just how to fight, but why. Because surviving isn't about glory. It's about staying alive to protect the people you love. And so, training here is never cruel, never pointless. It's measured, guided, purposeful. No one trains alone. No one is left behind. In the woods beyond the cabins, the forest whispers old names. Dryads hide behind trees. Hellhounds might be lurking, but only in the controlled chaos of capture the flag games. The campfire ring sits at the edge, where stories are passed down like heirlooms, and marshmallows are toasted with ambrosia flames. And every demigod has memories etched into these fields. The archery range where Clarice once accidentally set a target on fire. The climbing wall where lava flows and boulders shift, daring campers to try again after every fall. The canoe lake where naiads giggle beneath the water and campers race, not just for victory, but for the sheer joy of it. Meals are taken in the pavilion under the open sky, at tables assigned by cabin. But even in the structured system, friendships bloom across lines. Annabeth sits with Selena. Grover shares food with Tyson. Even gods can't stop demigods from forming bonds of their own choosing. Offerings are made by scraping the best part of a meal into the brazier at the center. The flames catch the scent and send it skyward. Sometimes golden, sometimes green, sometimes blue like Percy's. Each color a whisper to the heavens, a prayer, a thank you, a plea, remember me. But the camp is more than training and routine. It's filled with strange magic. The Oracle of Delphi sleeps in the attic of the big house. Her presence is eerie but sacred. The mist swirls around her words, the same mist that hides demigods from mortal sight and cloaks the impossible in illusion. Hecate's children weave charms into doorframes. Hypno's cabin always seems to carry the scent of lavender and warm blankets. The Dionysus cabin hums with the low buzz of bees, grapes growing right on the porch vines. Even the mess hall sometimes seems to shift, rearranging seats depending on moods, like it knows where you need to sit. At Camp Half-Blood, the impossible becomes ordinary. Chiron once said, "This camp has existed for thousands of years, and it will outlive even Olympus, should it fall." And it's true, because Camp Half-Blood is not just a place. It's a story kept alive by those who believe in it, by those who dream of it. And you are now one of them. You can hear the distant echo of hooves in the stables. Pegasus wings rustle in the hay, waiting for the next ride through the skies. In the Athena cabin, notebooks rustle with sketches of new traps, maps, and battle plans. In Hephaestus's forge, something always crackles, a tiny invention dreaming itself into being. Mirn, the Apollo cabin, writes haikus in the morning light. And the Ares cabin? Well, there's always someone sharpening a blade or flexing a muscle. Yet even they laugh around the fire, sing the ancient camp songs, and trade scars like stories. Because every camper here shares one truth. They are not alone anymore. For so long, demigods wandered the mortal world, misunderstood, hunted, hidden. But here, they find kinship, someone who understands the nightmares, someone who also has monster scars and knows what it's like to flinch when the sky rumbles. Here, no one needs to hide. And the camp keeps growing. New cabins were built after the Second Titan War, not just for the 12 Olympians, but for all gods, so that no child would ever be unclaimed again. Piper's charms speak echoes from her cabin window. Leo's mechanical dragon sometimes roams too far. Will and Nico share a quiet bench by the strawberry fields, sunlight and shadow intertwined. Even those no longer here remain in memory. Selena Beauregard, Beckendorf, Michael Yu, Zoe Nightshade, Bianca. Their names live on, etched in stone, yes, but more importantly, in every story whispered around the fire. Legacies are not forgotten here. Each demigod carries a past, but not like a burden. They wear it like armor. They carry it like light. And one day, perhaps, when you visit the camp in dreams, you'll find your place too. Maybe in Cabin 6, if you love wisdom and learning. Maybe in Cabin 10, if you have a knack for beauty and order. Maybe even in Hermes' cabin, where mischief and laughter never sleep. Whoever your godly parent is, the camp has a place for you. Because Camp Half-Blood isn't just a camp. It's a home built for broken things to heal. It's a forge where lost children become heroes. It's a song echoing across centuries that says, "You matter." And as night falls and the campfire roars, and someone strums an old tune on a lyre, you feel it. You feel what every camper has felt before you. Hope, safety, belonging. Tomorrow, the bugle will sound again. You'll stretch your arms in the sun, maybe test your aim, maybe race a friend to the lake, maybe just sit by the hearth, watching the flames dance. But for tonight, you rest. The story continues soon. Next up comes the story of the hunters. The silver arrows, the eternal vow, and the quiet footsteps of a goddess in the woods. And there are tales of gods and giants, of storms and monsters, of quests and crowns. But tonight, the stars whisper something different. A quieter kind of story. One not of thrones, but of freedom. Long before the world became tangled in Olympus and prophecy, there was a bow, drawn not to conquer, but to protect. And behind it, a girl with silver eyes, and a vow that echoed louder than any god's decree. Her name was Artemis. Artemis was born twin to Apollo, daughter of Leto, a child of the hunt and the moon. From the very start, she was different. While other gods demanded temples and cities, Artemis asked only for freedom. A bow, a band of loyal maidens, and forests untouched by man. She walked the earth in silence, her silver chariot gliding through night skies, her arrows defending creatures most would overlook. She needed no throne, no war, just peace and promise. The gods respected her, feared her. Even Zeus dared not command her, because Artemis wasn't cruel. She simply refused to be controlled. The girls who followed her came from many places. Some were daughters of war. Some were children of sorrow. Others were simply tired of being told who they had to become. And to them, Artemis offered something rare. Not power, not immortality, but choice. To walk away from the world's noise. To never age, never be bound, never be owned. To chase the wind through pine forest. To watch the stars from mountaintops. To protect the lost and leave no footprints behind. These girls became the hunters of Artemis. And when they took the oath to swear off romance, to live free under moonlight, to follow no one but each other, they stopped aging. They became legend. The hunters don't live in cabins. They don't build homes. Instead, they move like wind, camping beneath the stars, tracking monsters before they strike, guarding demigods who will never know they were saved. Sometimes you see them, just a flicker of silver in the woods, a quiet footstep on frozen ground, a glimpse of moonlit hair vanishing into the trees. They don't fight for glory. They don't pose for statues. But their arrows find monsters before the monsters find you. And when the world forgets them, they don't mind. They remember each other. Among the hunters was a name you might already know: Thalia Grace, daughter of Zeus, once a lightning rod of chaos and fire. Turned to pine, then reborn. When Thalia awoke from the tree, she'd already given everything for her friends. But the world demanded more: prophecies, loyalties, expectations. And Thalia, she chose freedom. She found Artemis, or perhaps Artemis found her. And Thalia took the oath. She left behind thrones and fates. She became Silver Wind, a soldier with storm in her eyes, but peace in her chest, and no longer the center of Olympus's gaze, but finally free. Before Thalia, there was another, Zoe Nightshade, an ancient daughter of the West. Once part of the Hesperides nymphs who guarded golden apples. But Zoe refused to be silent. She refused to follow the rules of cruel gods. Banished by her own sisters, she found Artemis. And with Artemis, she found belonging. Zoe lived centuries, protected forests, fought monsters, guided heroes, until one day, she gave her life for a quest. She died beneath the stars, not forgotten, but transformed. Her spirit became a constellation, the huntress, etched into the sky by Artemis herself. Look up tonight. She's still watching. There's a kind of magic the hunters carry, not the kind that bends lightning or summons storms, but the kind that whispers in leaves, that stills the heart, that lets you rest. If you ever see a ring of moonlight in the woods, if you hear a song with no words, it might be them. Not gods, not mortals, just girls who chose something else. Freedom over fame, sisterhood over spectacle, silence over power. In a world of heroes and battles, they are the lullaby. The gods may rage, heroes may rise and fall, prophecies may burn themselves out, but the hunters, they remain. They do not age, they do not change. They wander across mountains, through snow, beneath stars. They are the thread that never breaks. You may never meet one, but you'll feel them in the stillness of the woods, in the safety of sleep, in the sense that someone quiet, someone strong is watching over you. The lore of Percy Jackson is filled with thunder, with cyclops and crowns and crashing waves. But it ends not with noise, but with calm, a bow, a promise, a silver glimmer through trees. The gods rest, the monsters sleep, and the hunters move on. They'll be there tomorrow, and the next night, and the one after that. As long as stories are told, as long as there are girls who want something different, they'll be watching, they'll be guarding, they'll be free. You've followed gods, you've climbed Olympus, you've stood beside Percy in storms, you've watched Nico descend into shadow, you've seen heroes rise and rest, and now you sit in silence, wrapped in a tale that no longer needs a shout, because you know that even when the world spins fast, there are places where time slows, where arrows fly not to harm, but to protect, where girls run faster than fate, where the moon is enough. So let the fire go low. Let the bow rest in its case. Let your heartbeat match the rhythm of a forest at night. The story is done, but the peace remains, because the final chapter wasn't about gods. It was about girls who chose their own ending. And you've heard it all, from chaos to the giants, from titans to trials, from Percy to the last hunter in silver. So sleep now. Let Artemis guide your dreams. Let Zoe's stars blink softly above you. Let Thalia's storm become a breeze in your chest, and let yourself rest, because lore, true lore, doesn't end. It settles. Like snow, like memory, like moonlight. You're safe now. And the hunters? They'll keep watch. Until you wake. The world of gods and monsters has quieted now. The storms have passed. The arrows have stopped mid-flight. And the tides of Olympus have rolled gently back into the sea. You, dear dreamer, have walked every path, from chaos to the end, from titans rising to hunters fading into starlight. And now the stars wait for you to close your eyes, because the tale is complete. And your heart, it's full of it. You've heard of Gaia and her breathless awakening, of Uranus and the first skyborn scream, of the Titans, fierce, proud, broken. You've seen Cronus rise and fall, watched Zeus throw lightning through time itself, heard the echo of Poseidon's oceans, felt Hades press shadows against the edges of the living world. You've wandered through the golden halls of Olympus. You've flown with Hermes, sailed with Dionysus, heard Athena whisper secrets no one else could know. And when monsters came, you stood with heroes, with Perseus and his blade, with Heracles and his burden, with demigods whose names are carved in both fear and love. But even deeper than myths, even older than monsters, is the feeling you carry now, that sense of wonder, that hush before the story fades, that warm ember of meaning flickering quietly in your chest. Because bedtime stories don't just lull us to sleep. They remind us of who we are. And in this moment, you're not just a listener, you're a part of it. A keeper of old dreams, a guardian of soft endings. Camp Half-Blood lies quiet tonight. The cabins are glowing gently, like stars that never fell. The big house leans in silence, old and wise. The canoe lake reflects a silver moon. And the strawberry fields breathe out sweetness and sleep. Pegasi twitch their wings, dreaming of the clouds. Dryads rest inside ancient trees, their branches swaying in rhythm with your breath. Even the forges have dimmed, embers pulsing soft in the belly of the Hephaestus cabin. And you're lying beneath the stars, wrapped in starlight, blanketed by myth. The gods have gone quiet, because the tale has been told. And it belongs to you now. Somewhere far off, Apollo plucks a lyre string. A lullaby of golden notes echoes through the night. Not grand, not proud, just still. Artemis's hunt passes overhead silent, swift, unseen. But one of them glances back, just once, toward you, and nods. Because you were listening. Because you held the myth all the way to its end. You saw it all. From chaos, formless and eternal, to the gods who walked in golden sandals across human hearts, to the giants who rose but could not win, to the titans who learned that time cannot be owned. You walked with Percy, flew with Thalia, held the shadows with Nico, sailed with Annabeth through ancient dust and forgotten ruin. You learned of titans who broke the sky, and mothers who birthed the earth, of gods who made mistakes, and heroes who forgave them, of fates and prophecies. That could be changed by a single act of love. But now, it's time to rest. The tale has softened, the voices have faded, and the moon hangs still, like the end of a sentence whispered too long ago. Let the myths drift down now. Let them settle like snow over pine needles, like dust on an old scroll. You've done enough. You've heard enough. And what matters most is that you stayed. To the last word, to the final flicker. Because even if the gods fade someday, even if Olympus disappears behind clouds, even if Camp Half-Blood becomes just a story told by dreamers, you'll remember. You'll remember the feeling, the courage, the wonder, the warmth of a world built on dreams, sacrifice, and second chances. You'll remember that gods weren't perfect, that even immortals had hearts that broke, that every great power began as something small, a breath, a whisper, a story. So now, let yourself float. Let go of swords and storms. Let your mind drift across the stars. You are not alone. Not now. The gods are at peace. The demigods are home. The battles have ended. The tale has curled in on itself, like a fable tucking in for sleep. From this point on, there is no more to chase, no more to prove. Just this, a heartbeat beneath the stars, a breath you forgot you were holding, a hush at the edge of dreams. This is the part where everything goes quiet, where the ocean stops singing, where the monsters lie still in caves, where Olympus simply exhales, and you are safe. As safe as Annabeth curled in the Athena cabin with a book at her chest. As safe as Grover humming lullabies into mossy hills. As safe as Tyson dreaming of peanut butter and warm hugs. As safe as Percy, asleep beneath the waves. The world will spin again. The monsters may rise again. Prophecies may whisper in the wind once more. But not tonight. Tonight is yours. To rest. To drift. To keep the story safe. So sleep now. Sleep as if you were born of stardust. Sleep like Jaya before the first tremble. Sleep like Hestia beside a hearth no storm can blow out. Let your dreams sail softly. Let your breath steady and slow. Let the story rest, curled up gently like an ancient scroll. You are not just a listener. You are a part of the myth now, written in stardust, carved in time, whispered in the wind. And if you ever forget it, if the world gets loud again, close your eyes, and you'll find it. Camp Half-Blood, the gods, the heroes, the songs, right where you left them, waiting, like always, for the next dreamer. Like you, good night. Sleep well. And may the stories never stop finding you. You are loved. You are legendary. And you are home.